Let's get right into our first topic for this episode. And I think we can't start anywhere else except for the Bank of Canada decision today. So I think everybody, like we were saying earlier, thought that the Bank of Canada was going to keep interest rates where they were, and they did. So no change. It's staying at 50 basis points of 0.5%, which just goes to show you that they're continuing on their current monetary policy of keeping interest rates historically low. So not much surprising coming out of this
No, we were
data.
sort of expecting that, even talking last night and this morning. We were basically just waiting for the news to kind of show up and just give us the information that we were sort of waiting for. So not much surprise there.
And it was interesting too, we haven't read the exact statement from the Bank of Canada, but they were happy that there was the, quote, fiscal stimulus in the budget. So I think they like seeing that the government was committed to making a number of spending with their large deficits. But also too, they did sort of they changed their forecast on the GDP outlook for Canada to increase over the next year and to be higher than what they thought. But even with that, it's still not enough for them to say, well, now is the time to start increasing interest rates and stop the easing of monetary policy. So again, too, I don't think anytime soon we're going to see an increase in interest rates from the Bank of Canada. It's mostly probably going to be, like we said, maybe negative interest rates. We'll have to see what this budget does. But they were happy that they went into such a large deficit, that is the federal government. And again, even though they're seeing some greater GDP growth in Canada, it's not really positioning them to make an increase in the interest rate.
No, and I won't speak for my brother, but it almost seems at this point I'd be more surprised if they actually increase the rate than if they continue to decrease and perhaps maybe even went into negative interest rates. At least that's where I'm kind of sitting right now.
Right. You think that they're going to go lower? Or
I would kind of expect them to go lower before raising them at this point.
Well, that's interesting you say that too, because even though the economy is getting better in their estimation, they're still, like this BNN article that we're looking at right now, it says that the Bank of Canada strikes cautious tone as dollar weighs on the economy. Again, the dollar has gone up 10% or not 10%, 10 cents, even more than 10%. But they're seeing like, we don't want to shake anything up with what the dollar's doing or what the economy's doing. We better just keep everything the same at this point.
Exactly. And then with all the debt and all the new records with household debt and everything like that, it just seems very unlikely at this point in Canada that you're actually going to see a rate increase.
I agree.
And there's been really no talk. I haven't seen anything. I don't think you have either in the media. Any discussion about raising rates. I haven't seen anything like that in a long time, months, if not years.
No, and it's interesting in relation to. It's almost like the Canada sort of holds back their decision until what the American Federal Reserve does. Because I remember we were talking last week about Janet Yellen saying, well, we have to be cautious now. We might not have the 4 interest rate increases this year. And it's the same thing under the Bank of Canada, this cautious tone. Mm-hmm. We can't, which really makes you think that globally something is a slowdown of some sort is right around the corner. At least that's what the numbers are telling these so-called experts. But you did mention one thing that I think we should talk about next, is there was a great Bloomberg article, and I'm really enjoying Bloomberg. I've found a couple of articles from them that I've been enjoying. This one was from yesterday, April 12th, and it just talked about 4 reasons why it's unlikely that the Bank of Canada will decrease rates any further. And they gave 4 charts, and with all 4 charts, it basically suggested that things were going well, but also in a sense saying, here's why they can't cut interest rates anymore. And actually, if you think about it, all 4 of these charts that Bloomberg puts out here, a lot of them suggest that you should be raising interest rates.
Yeah.
So not only is it saying you can't really decrease rates any more than what they're at, but maybe you should start thinking about raising interest rates.
Yeah. Which I don't think anyone has thought about in the Canadian government and at the Bank of Canada.
I don't think the Bank of Canada is in a rush to raise interest rates at this point. But basically, the first 3 of the charts are pretty economically focused charts. Basically, they're saying that Canada's GDP is rising, and it actually got revised quite a bit. they thought that it was going to be around 1.5%, and I think their new number is 2.9% for the first quarter of 2016. So almost doubling. So they're making the argument, well, Canada's GDP is almost double what we thought it was. You probably don't need to stimulate anymore with monetary policy. But then also, too, the outlook for non-energy sectors has been increasing, which is good for the economy. And the third chart that they talk about is that unemployment is decreasing. So the employment level in Canada is going up, or at least it's increasing faster than what they thought was going to happen. But the most important chart that I want to talk about, and I think this article nails it, which is why this is a good article here. I always like the articles that agree with me. But what they focus on is just the levels of household debt, and also too the prices of houses up here in Canada. And if you look at this chart here, we've talked about it in almost every video that we've made in the last couple of months.
Two areas that we're extremely interested in and have definitely been following.
Right, and the article just says that there was 2 rate cuts last year, and because of those rate cuts, it's done nothing to quell the increase in Canadian household debt, which has gone steadily up ever since 2009, and it was even going up before 2009. It had a little dip during the 2008 crisis, but right now the household debt to income ratio, it went from about 140 to 2009 all the way up to about 167, I think is what it was at last check. So for every dollar somebody makes in Canada, on average, they're $1.67 in debt, or $1.67 in debt.
And these are all record highs in Canada.
Absolutely. And then just our housing prices on top of that. Housing has never been more expensive, and it seems like it's just making new records. Same with the household debt, new records for housing prices. And somebody had mentioned in our comment section a couple of videos ago, just to be able to purchase a home is so risky these days that you're going to have to work and sort of be a wage slave in order to be able to pay off your house. I think we talked about in Vancouver, the average housing cost was over $800,000.
Yeah, it's getting crazy, and it's happening all over Canada too, which I find quite interesting. From Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, everywhere.
It's almost unlivable in Vancouver.
Yeah, Vancouver
and Toronto.
Vancouver and Toronto both are getting pretty crazy. A couple of years ago, I started to hear some rumblings about just how crazy and out of hand it was getting in both Vancouver and Toronto, and it's only gone up since that point.
Yeah, and it's gotten a lot pricier.
Yeah.
So I think that all of these charts are good. The one that I like focusing on is just that debt, because if you look at these charts, and you know that the Bank of Canada, the board, is looking at that. They're looking at Canadians continually getting themselves into more and more debt, and because the level of the debt to income ratio, and then also to the housing prices, they're going up in step. So you can tell that a lot of the new debt is with mortgages and a lot of the housing debt. So they're looking at that and saying, well, how long can we keep these interest rates at what they're at right now? And just to do another decrease in interest rates at this point, it hopefully scares them, because it doesn't seem like there's much more room for Canadians to get themselves into debt.